We're good? Awesome. All right, well, hi everyone, happy June. Somehow it's almost July, but I hope you all are enjoying your summer already. As per usual, we are going to start with a very long FOIA script before we jump into our agenda. So yeah, give me like 3 minutes of nonstop talking and we'll get done sooner rather than later. All right, to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, the Young Adults Advisory Council for the Notice of Council needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the council is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is present, is participating, and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and that at an appropriate volume for all other members to hear. Accordingly, I am going to conduct a roll call. I ask that each council member participating in this meeting state your name and location from which you're calling. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear all of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can be heard by every other member. All right, roll call. Denver Superintendent calling in from Boston, Massachusetts. Sam Steiner. Sam Waffle. I'm pulling up the participant list. I don't see Sam on. Casey Judge.
Hi, everyone. Casey Judge calling from Annandale, Virginia.
Awesome. Judith Kupla.
Sujit Kopla calling in from Vienna, Virginia.
Dini Mohamud.
Sorry, Dini Mahmood calling in from Annandale, Virginia.
Eddie Sandova. Eddie, can you unmute? Say hello, say where you're calling in from. Eddie, can you hear us? All right, we'll circle back there. Manor Zafar. Let's see, Manor on. Dr. Hill is not on. Paul won't be joining us. And our newest member, Emma Hainsey. Emma.
Hi, Emma Heisey calling in from Fairfax, Virginia.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to my fellow council member, Casey Judge, so I can be heard to make a requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the council.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
All right. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to the meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the council to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the council and physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely nor practically.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, wait, don't second it yet. I didn't finish, okay. Sorry. I lost my line, my screen moved. I further move that the council may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conference line, and that the public may access the meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Young Adults Advisory Council website at www.fairfaxcounty.gov / economic-initiatives-young-adults-advisory-council-YAA, or by calling 1-571-429-5982 and entering access code 937-072-308#. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Finally, to get finally, it's not required for all matters addressed in today's agenda to address the emergency itself are necessary for the continuation of the Fairfax County government and or statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations and the discharge of the council's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved. We don't need a second that. We're just gonna do it. Do we have anyone from the public? Let me go back to our list. And we might have had someone showing. James on. That's a no. Eddie, if you can still unmute and say hello, we would love to make sure we can hear you. All right. So today's agenda will be modified a little bit rather than going into subcommittees. We'll do one full committee with the affordable housing presentation. Are there any objections to that edit? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All right, without objection, that is that. All right, well, Emma is our newest person joining. I'm so sorry for killing your last name there, but I'm so excited to have you as part of the council. I've met her personally. She works for Melanie Marin, a school member for Hunterville District, excuse me. But Emma, please introduce yourselves. Welcome to the council.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. So as Denver said, I do work for Melanie Marin. I'm the staff aide to Melanie, who's the Hunter Mill District representative on the Fairfax County School Board. And I've been in that role for about 2 years now. Before that, I was working in Arlington on similar school board initiatives. And then before that, I'm actually a North Carolina native, moved up here in 2018. So again, glad to be here and happy to get to know you all.
We're happy to have you. A few things about the council. I mean, you'll kind of get a feel for things, but we do have 2 subcommittees. We have, and we're going to change the name, the Toe and the Pit. So talent outreach and engagement, which focuses on, training our folks, engaging our folks, and keeping them in Fairfax County. And then planning, infrastructure, and transportation. So like the deliverable side of things, hard deliverable side of things of the county. So if you have a preference, let me know. Today we'll hear a presentation in regards to the PIT committee, but want to go down to education, we definitely need a more voice there and some more insights. So
happy to do either. Obviously, I can probably provide more insight on education, so I'm happy if you want to put me there, but wherever you'd like to put me, it's fine.
sounds good. I like it. I like it. Thank you. I'm just gonna disclose in the beginning that I am obviously on a cell phone, so I will be turning off my camera from time to time, but this is hopefully, we do try to do an on-camera meeting, cough, cough, council members. So just want to make that known that we try to do an on-camera meeting. Without further ado, we have a wonderful representative from Leadership Fairfax with their Youth Leadership Network, who's going to talk about how we can get engaged and go forward with Shantae.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Shantae Gilstrap, and I'm the program manager for Leadership Fairfax's Youth Leadership Network. I'm going to try to share my screen really quickly so that we can see the presentation. Let you guys know that Zoom is our go-to. So as I try to figure out sharing content here we go. All right, give me 1 second. Start. And I'm gonna jump right on into this for you guys. Just to give you some background on Leadership Fairfax. Leadership Fairfax is an organization that has been serving the leaders in Fairfax County for over 33 years. With that being said, Leadership Fairfax has partnered with the County of Fairfax to provide a leadership network. So our goal here is to connect the next generation of leaders with workshops, trainings, and then also giving them the opportunity to connect and network with each other. With that said, we lead with values in mind. Our core values for our Leadership Network program is to our diversity and inclusion, honesty and integrity, knowledge of issues impacting our community. Sounds like the things that you guys are already here doing at YAA, and passion for action and sustainable change within Fairfax County and community stewardship. So some of the key features of YLN is our trainings and workshops. Again, Leadership Fairfax has over 33 years of experience training executives, some of the city's council, some of the people who now serve in the county's in the county as in important roles in the city councils and things of that nature. So we take those trainers and the programs that we've developed and now are bringing them to our youth. So we have networking events and then also some volunteer opportunities to give you guys an opportunity to connect with other councils outside of YAA. This is a great opportunity for you guys to meet like-minded young adults who not only want to make a change in their community, but want to get active and learn more ways to sharpen and engage their leadership skills. So we believe that leadership is a journey from execution to empowerment, and it is our job as leaders in our community to give the youth the tools that they need to execute in the areas in which they are interested in and also where they want to see change. So providing them with their resources and tools to empower them to make those changes in their communities. It is a very simple thing. You do not pay for YLN. It is a free to sign up, free to participate in trainings, and free to participate in any of our volunteer opportunities and networking events. So if you're like, hey, I'm not sure if this is something I want to do, but I want to learn more, I do invite you all out to join us for our YLN Service Day, which will be July 14th. This is a QR code to the sign up form. But we are partnering with Reston Association to do a tree rescue. So we will be out there from 9:30 till about 12:30 on July 14th, just getting our hands dirty and really putting action behind what it is that we want to see done. So this is a great opportunity for just to have volunteerism on your resumes, or just if it's something that you're really passionate about, to join us. If you're looking for more information on exactly what it is that we do with Leadership Fairfax's YLN, that's also our QR code. This is my email address, so you can contact me directly. I will be all point of contact, the point of contact for all programs with YLN, any of our trainings, any of our workshops. We do invite you to get connected with us. And this is our phone number. If you want to jot that information down, take a screenshot, you are all welcome to this. But if there's any questions you have, you may ask me now. I didn't want to keep you guys for too long, but just wanted to give you this opportunity to see what we're doing here in Fairfax County and giving you an opportunity to connect with us as well.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the council?
And Shataya, just in case people didn't, get the QR code and all that, I can certainly circulate your contact information.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jared, for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank
no
you
worries.
all for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm looking forward to the partnership. I definitely want to come out to Reston for your volunteers. So please send all the information over to Jared, and we'll make sure we share it out.
Will do. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop off so you guys can have your meeting. But I really appreciate you having me today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
All right, folks. As the agenda was amended, we are going to have a full meeting. So Emma, for context, usually we have meetings once a month. Every other month is a 2-hour meeting. So the first half is the subcommittee, the second half is the full committee. This is technically a 1 hour where we're going to gain our subcommittees, but just due to agenda items and different presentations, we are switching to having the affordable housing presentation be given to all. And then next month, we'll have a full committee with some different conversations. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But just some context there. So next month, if everyone's available, we'll have a conversation about that at the end. Will be a 2-hour, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. All right. Well, Carol, are you on? If so, I would love to give you the floor because I know I have a million questions about all the wonderful things we're doing with affordable housing. So excited to have you here. Oh, you are muted.
Turn my mic on. Yep, sorry. Yes, happy to be here. Thank you. You want me to just introduce myself or just start with the presentation? I am the director of the Homeownership. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please do. We would love to get to know you in your professional space and all that great. So yeah, please.
Sure. Yes, I am Carol Earhart. I'm the director of the Homeownership and Relocation Services Division for the Fairfax County Department of Housing. I've been in the role for about 12 years now. Prior to that, I was overseeing the rental programs for the agency. So, and I understand from Jarrett that you're very interested in advancing homeownership for young purchasers. So what I put together today is just kind of some historical information about programs that have been available since the homeownership program began with the county, just so you have some context and maybe perhaps some thoughts on, when you have your subcommittee meetings on possible directions to go in the future. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I have a few slides to go over. Okay, there we go. Okay, move that. So as Department of Housing staff, we actually wear 2 hats. We are Fairfax County employees, but we also serve as staff to the Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and through which the county receives federal funds to administer things like rental programs. And we've used some federal funding during the foreclosure crisis to help people. And we're currently using some federal funding for down payment assistance programs. So I'm going to start with some of the oldest program and get to more recent. So let me move this over here. So the very first program that the county started happened back in 1978. It was called a Moderate Income Direct Sales Program. The Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority, or FCRHA, administered that program. The proffers from developers started happening around 1978. The program actually began in 1979 with the first purchases. There were a total of 289 programs bought by low and moderate income families, and currently there are still about fewer than 80 MIDS units in the program. They're predominantly townhomes and condos. There are some single family homes in that. The legal instrument for the program is the deed. So the covenant requirements to occupy the home and the FCRHA's right to purchase the home upon sale were recorded in the deeds that are in the land records. Some of the units have been purchased and resold within the program to a new homeowner, and so they have additional 30-year covenants on them, which basically says during that time period, if the owner passes away or moves out of the home, that the FCRHA has the right to purchase that property. And the purchase price is calculated based on the amount that it was bought for initially, plus the consumer price index over the course of the time, and then there's an allowance for up to $3,500 in documented structural improvements. So that would be what the FCRHA would pay to the seller of the home if the home was sold prior to the end of the 30-year restriction period. After the 30 years, the seller does have the opportunity to sell it outright from the program. There is a second, so what the FCRHA brought to the table was a second deed of trust. They had mortgages through a private lender of their choice, but the FCRHA contributed $15,000 essentially in down payment assistance. It's a forgivable 30-year loan. So as long as they were occupying the home during this time period, the $15,000 would be theirs to keep at the end of that time period. Obviously, since 1979, the 30-year restrictions have rolled off of the majority of these, but there are still some remaining on the program. And some of these homes also had a third deed of trust for $5,000 to help with necessary improvements to the home. So that was the oldest program. As I said, there are still some available, but starting in 1990, the county passed an affordable dwelling unit ordinance, and so it's known as the ADU program. This program provides affordable housing options as developers built out the county. If they had developments that had at least 50 units, they were required to give a percentage of those units as affordable homes in order to get a density bonus. And the ordinance has changed throughout the years. Initially, the control period for the units was 50 years. In 1998, the control period was reduced to 15 years. And then in February 2006, the control period was put back, was increased to 30 years. So there's some, actually the 15-year control period has ended for all of those units, but there are still some people that have the 50 years. They have an option to get an amendment to reduce that to 30 years, but the opportunity to reduce it to 15 years no longer exists. So currently, there are 1,167 ADUs in the program. Some of them have the control period has expired. Again, mostly townhomes, some condos, a few single-family homes in the program as well. For these units, the restrictions are recorded in covenants that are also recorded with the deed and the deed of trust for these units. And as I mentioned, currently there's 30-year control period. So similar to the MIDs, the control price is based on the original purchase price by the home buyer, and the consumer price index is added into that. And there are allowable costs for documented structural improvements, like if they add a deck or a basement or create a new bathroom or something like that. So with this program and another program coming up, there is a 30-year initial control period by which if they need to sell the property, this control price is calculated. But if they stay in the property until the end of the control period, the FCRHA does still have the first right to purchase the unit, but the owner can offer it to the housing authority at a market rate value. And whether the housing authority purchases it or not, there is a percentage of the equity that gets contributed to the Housing Trust Fund to further affordable housing opportunities. I'm going to stop now because I've kind of already said a mouthful. Do people have any questions about what I've said so far? Or do you want me to clarify any information? And I can't, since I have my screen out, I can't see if anyone's raising their hand or not, so.
So Carol, I have a few questions about
Sure.
generational wealth and how we're tracking that and how housing is a play in that and what we're doing. But I'm sure that'll be an end conversation, if that's okay.
Okay, sure, no problem. Now, maybe you know this, but starting in about 2006 to 2008, market rate homes really took a nosedive as far as the values, and there was a foreclosure crisis going on. So at that time, the FCRHA, through the help of some federal dollars, mostly what they call home investment partnership funds, but also through some federal community development block grant funds, HUD allowed the agency to establish basically what we called a helper silver lining program. So while it was terrible that these foreclosures were happening, the silver lining is that people were able to purchase some of these homes, in some cases as short sales rather than going to foreclosure. But this was an opportunity for people to pick up homes that had gone down in value because of the foreclosure and the overfinancing that had been going on during those years. And the FCRHA recorded a second deed of trust with funds, federal funds. And so, and that varied depending on the purchase price of the property, and was a formula that was used to determine how much the FCRHA would contribute. So in some cases, the FCR contributed up to 25% of the value of the home. And so in exchange for that, when the home goes to be sold, the FCRHA would collect what they had put into the property plus 25% of the equity in that example. Sometimes the equity share was almost as much as 40% of the value of the home. So the FCRHA is not charging interest on what they contributed, but they do get a share of the equity from the home when it is sold. Now, this had a number of units. Currently, there's only 51 of these units remaining. So a lot of these, obviously, since that time, have been sold off the program or resold and put into the program, more along the lines of what we do with ADUs. But the ones that are remaining at the time that the home sells, there will be a contribution for the equity share that the FCRHA put into that home. A newer program is the Workforce Dwelling Unit program. This program was established by the Board of Supervisors in October 2007 initially, and most of the homes that were available in the form of rental WDUs. It wasn't until 2019 that some of these WDUs were available as for sale units. So we didn't start getting them until 2019. So currently there's only, so this is as of the end of the fiscal year. So as of the end of fiscal year 2021, there were 19 WDUs in the program, and it operates very similarly to the ADU program, with the exception that these units are available to a much wider range of income tiers. The ADUs are available for families with income up to 70% of the area median, while WDUs are priced at 70, 80, 100, and 120% of the area median. They're mostly condos and some townhomes and a lot of 2-over-2 townhome style condos. So again, like the ADU program, they have recorded covenants that outline the financing, refinancing, required occupancy, and sales of the units, both during an initial price control period and at the end of the initial price control period. So similar to the ADUs, these are all 30-year control periods now because it's a newer program. But so the first WDUs won't be rolling off the program till 2049. But at that time, when they go to sell, similar to the ADUs, they could offer, they still have to come back to the housing authority, but they can come back and say, now I want to offer this at a market rate price. But during, like the ADUs, during the 30-year period, there's a calculation based on the consumer price index. The FCRHA also partners with Virginia Housing. Because of the lack of affordable homes in Northern Virginia in general, and Fairfax County in particular, Fairfax County is considered an underserved community for affordable housing. So if you're familiar with how the loans work, and with the interest rates starting to creep up again, purchasers generally have the option to buy down the interest rate by paying a point. So they would pay a certain amount of fees, usually 1% of the mortgage amount, to buy down that interest rate by a point. Well, for these cases, Virginia Housing, through the FCRHA sponsorship of the funds. So the FCRHA doesn't actually receive these funds, but we act, the staff in the Homeownership Division review the Virginia Housing loans by Virginia Housing lenders. We verify that the person is eligible, that the home they're buying is within the program limits. And then Virginia Housing, we authorize Virginia Housing to give that lender that amount of money. So essentially what Virginia Housing is doing is buying down the interest rate. So while the interest rates are in the 5% now and closing on 6% before too long, they'd be able to buy a market rate home with a reduced interest rate of 1 point. So it helps bring the price a little bit more affordable to those that might not ordinarily be able to afford a market rate home. The current maximum amount that people can buy a home for is $550,000. But as you can see here, so far since fiscal year 20, so there was actually this funding available back before I came to the division, but in the last few years, they've reinvigorated this program. And so since fiscal year 2020, 112 families have been able to buy market rate homes through this assistance, and the average first trust amount is $350,000. So you can see they're still buying homes that are well under the maximum allowable amount. So here, as I mentioned, the income tiers are the first-time home buyer, predominantly the oops, I'm sorry, let me go back. First-time home buyer program has always served 70% of area median. So that's most of who our purchases are. So you would look down this column for your household size, and then you would go across this. So if you made $95,000 and you were a family of 3, you'd actually be over income for our first-time home buyer program, over income at 80%, but you would be at the 100% AMI income tier. Or if you have a family of 5 making $100,000, you'd be over the 70% limit, but under the 80% limit. And here's just kind of showing where the bands overlap. So as I mentioned, the WDU program serves everywhere from 70% up to 120%. Our down payment assistance program is available for people purchasing either an ADU or a WDU. As long as their income is under 80%, even if they're buying a 100% unit, they would be eligible for the down payment assistance, which I'm going to talk about. So there are some differences between the first-time homebuyer program, again, predominantly these days with ADUs. The underwriting criteria that the FCRHA has established is a little bit more conservative for those with the lower income tiers, because we are trying to set families up for success and make sure that, for example, that they do actually have some reserves, and that they meet that there's no outstanding collections or judgments. There is an exception for medical collections, but people have to be in a repayment agreement for that. On the WDU side, with higher income wage earners, the FCRHA is a little bit less restrictive. The thought is that as long as a lender is willing to approve a loan for a WDU purchaser with certain minimum criteria, that we don't want to stand in the way of someone being able to buy a WDU if they can otherwise afford to do so. So our goal is to try and help people, set people up for success so that they don't potentially face foreclosure. But we do work with families if we hear that they could be facing delinquencies or potential foreclosure. There's the two of the good things that are in the covenants that we record is that any lender has to agree to give us at least a 90-day notice of a pending foreclosure, because we do reach out to homeowners and try to help them either get a loan modification or see if there's something else, or if all else fails, to at least sell the home back to us before they lose it to foreclosure, so that they don't lose all the money that they've invested in it. So we do have, some of my staff are former HUD housing counselors, and so we do try to work with them to set them up for success, like I said, but also if something happens, and sometimes there's the death of a primary wage earner and then they can no longer afford to pay the mortgage. So we do try to work with families to prevent foreclosure. I think I handed out this little document ahead of time. If you take the time to go to the website and you look under the programs, here again are the two primary programs. When you click on this tab, you'll get to see steps in the process, but you'll also get to see available homes for sales. So once you click on either the first-time home buyer program or the WDU program, on those separate pages, you'll see listings of available homes. This is kind of what you'll look like, what it'll look like whether you click on a first-time home buyer or WDU. There's 4 steps in the process. The first one is listening to the orientation session. Because of the difference in the program rules, there's 2 separate orientation sessions. We provide the link to the entire list of documents needed to go through the application process, a little online survey so you can give us feedback on the orientation. And then steps 2 through 4 are to get a Virginia housing home buyer education certificate. Those are primarily online. Before COVID, they were primarily in person, but the counseling agencies, some of them are doing virtual sessions so that groups can attend at the same time, but you can also take it one-on-one. The good thing about the online orientation session is you can stop the presentation at any time. It's also available in several different languages. So if you need language interpretation, you can set it to hear that in a different language. After the home buyer education certificate, there's part 1 of the documents is a lender pre-approval document. And we give you lists of lenders that already work with our program. Of course, you can choose a lender of your choosing. Credit unions are an excellent source and usually very willing to work with our purchasers. So that's the next step, and that's an important step because that tells us from the lender how much home you can afford, so that when you're looking at the available homes, you know exactly whether you can enter the drawing or not based on the maximum lender pre-approval amount. And then once you have those documents, you complete the application, submit some preliminary documents to us, and then we would issue a certificate that has a unique T code that allows you to enter drawings. And this is some, what some of our new drawings look like. We've got a deadline date to apply. We have listing information that includes floor plans, amenities, HOA and condo costs, the schools that are nearby, floor plans, pictures. So once you look at the price here, again, the price is important. So as long as you have a lender pre-approval amount that exceeds this price, you're able to click on the Apply Now button, enter your T code, and then that as of the apply by date, we generate a list of people that are in the drawing, and based on preferences, we sort the list and then start calling people off the list for the available units. The good news is we have a number of the foreclosure, so COVID did not stop the development of units. This past year, we're at a 7-year high as far as unit sales. We'll have over 60 sales by the end of fiscal year 2022, which is coming up next week. And we still have a number of developments coming in the process. So the pipeline is rich with affordable units, both ADUs and WDUs. I mentioned a down payment assistance. This is federal community development block grant money. We give a $10,000 second deed of trust to people that with income up to 80%. It's forgiven after 5 years, as long as you continue to occupy the home. If for some reason you can't live in the home 5 years, you would pay back 1/5 of the loan for every year that you couldn't stay in the home. The unit has to pass an environmental review, which we conduct, and you're determined eligible for the funding at the time you come to the top of a drawing list. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm sure you do have questions. I'm happy to answer any that you might have. And I will stop sharing.
Casey, go ahead.
Great. Hi, Carol. Thank you for sharing with us tonight this information.
Sure.
So I had a question. It seemed like the numbers you were sharing, there's over 1 million people in Fairfax County, so I'm assuming that there's more demand for these units than supply. Other than what the board has been doing and, approving additional funding for affordable housing, is there anything else the county is doing to increase the supply or to provide additional affordable housing options?
So I did mention to Jarrett that at the last Board of Supervisor Housing Subcommittee, there actually was a brief discussion about the FCRHA getting involved as a potential lender. There are two critical vacancies within the hierarchy of the the Department of Housing at this point. One of them is the deputy director that oversees my division as well as other divisions within the agency. We just announced that the agency has made a hiring decision, and that person is going to start on August 1st. And then there's another key division, what we call our real estate finance division, which actually does most of the loans for the developments, but will also be involved in helping to make decisions for the loans that the FCRHA may or may not be able to make. I do know that there's also a trust document out there, so there's some consideration as far as the criteria. There's a universal loan document called a Form 1003 out there, and they do ask questions about citizenship and legal status in the country. So, well, actually, they don't ask citizenship. They do ask about legal status in the country, or the specific questions that they ask. So I think there's some desire to look at that, but Tom Fleetwood, the agency director, has committed to coming back in September once these new positions are hired with some thoughts about the FCRHA being a lender more than it has been in the past based on these programs. So that's to be decided, but that's something that they're considering.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I just had one additional question. How do you all do outreach about these programs? Is it, more reliance on people navigating to your website? Or are you doing community meetings or social media? How do you get the word out about this?
So another great question. In the past, before COVID, we were doing large group sessions at the government center here and that South County location as well. The one positive thing about COVID, if there was anything positive about COVID, it gave us access to technology tools that we didn't have before, thus the online orientation that people can navigate at their own time and convenience. And so that's allowed staff to focus on some of these additional sales that have been coming to us. So, but when we do have properties that we want to advertise, we do make use of the agency's Facebook page, Twitter, and those things. But a lot of people actually do hear about it from their own communities. Sometimes we start to see a trend with people coming to us. So we, as you suggested earlier, we have way more people wanting to buy these units than we have units available. The good news is that we are on the upswing. There have been years where we've had very few, and our lenders said, well, how many sales do you have? There were a couple years where we had fewer than 20 because we had to rely, there were no new developments. So we were relying on people to resell their homes back to the housing authority in order to have any units available. But like I said, the developers are kind of on a roll now. So at least we have some. It's a huge improvement to what we had several years ago. So hopefully those will continue. But again, with the FCRHA potentially taking some type of lender role, maybe there would be. So the MIDS units were also developer provided, but people were, the FCRHA was providing that $15,000 to. So I don't know if, I'm one piece of the puzzle. We haven't even had conversations because we are waiting for those 2 new staff people to be hired, but that will be, there'll be a lot of discussions about what form that could take.
Great, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Carol, just a question in general about how we are contributing to generational wealth in the county and recognizing that these programs require folks to sell back to the program to the county if sold in a set amount of time, so it's not creating generational wealth where they're walking away like they bought it for $250 in this market, probably selling for $575, right? And we are empowering them. Granted, I know it's a conversation of, well, we provided them this opportunity they might not have ever had, so we're asking them to pay it forward. But are there conversations about generational wealth and ensuring that folks are empowered through this program in addition to being able to access a home?
So that's another great question. There have been discussions at various times to look at the control period again, to see if they want to reduce it. It's interesting that with the properties that had 15-year control periods as opposed to the current 30-year one, the average person stays on the program about 17 years. Now that those 15-year units have rolled out of the program, it'll be interesting to see if our average goes down or up. People have thought, oh, 15 years, I can hang in there and wait to be able to sell at a market price. Not so sure in this area in particular, with a lot of different jobs and the mobility of people, if they'll try to make it to 30 years. Having said that, I never thought I'd be in my existing, I'm not in an affordable home, but I thought I've been in my current home for almost 30 years. I was like, wow, that went by faster than I thought it was going to happen. So I'm not sure about that. So Loudoun County still has 15-year covenants on their program. They have so many people applying to their program, they've actually closed their waiting list. I had talked to them recently. But that might be an option to get to market rate value sooner rather than later if they look at that control period again. So the Housing Authority ultimately has the decision to make that decision one way or another, but I know some of the commissioners have brought that up for discussion in the past.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, 15 years. I bought my place. I'm like planning to be there for 5, probably. So I think that's very common, especially with starter homes and young professionals who might not be fitting in this traditional family definition. So I appreciate that, Carol. Thank you. Any other questions?
Having said that, so we also have a housing choice voucher homeownership program, and we have 25 slots vouchers set aside for people wanting to use their voucher to buy a home rather than to rent a home. And we do see people moving from our affordable rental housing programs into affordable homeownership as a first step. And then eventually, as their income goes up, so they're doing the right thing. They're, buying when they can't, they're able to get into it. So it is affordable to them according to the criteria. But then as their children grow up and move on away, and they have more disposable wealth, and typically income goes up over time, that we are seeing people sell back their affordable homes and buying market rate homes, even within the control period. So yes, it's different for every family, but we have actually, one of our metrics is how many people successfully move off our affordable homeownership program into market rate homes. And the vast majority do. The times when they don't is, as I've mentioned, if the primary wage earner passes away or there's a divorce. Sometimes those are the situations where the remaining household members can't hold on to the home, and so they have to sell it in order to move into something more affordable. But hopefully when things work right, it is a good stepping stone for people as they move on to market rate homes.
Thank you, Carol. Any other questions from the council?
So it looks like we actually have a member of the public that joined this call and actually input a question into the chat. Is it Pranav Chowdhury? Is that correct?
Pranav.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to just kind of relay that? I don't know if Carol, you can see the text there, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Pranav when he joined, just kind of going through the actual like requirements and everything, but I don't know, Carol, if you're able to provide some concise content there.
So I'm not actually working on the trust document. I know about it because I have had to answer questions about what our lenders are currently doing. And so I mentioned that they are following the loan form 1003, which has questions to ask if they're here permanently. I also know from talking to lenders that some of them will not make loans to people that don't have legal status here. And some that are willing to make loans do it at a much higher interest rate. So back when I had the conversation, the interest rates were still around 3%. Yet what they were charging to people that don't have legal status in the country was a much higher interest rate, almost 20% at that time. So significantly higher. Currently, we rely on, outside lenders to make loans on our program, because that's the only source of funding that we currently have for people to use, or not our funding, but I should say that's the only option for people to be able to buy the units, is to find a lender that will work with them, give them a pre-approval and help them buy, our affordable homes. But I think that there's and interested in looking at that. Again, I think Loudoun County does not ask questions about that. And we leave it up to our lenders to decide, whether they will make a loan to somebody or not.
Carol, if I could just interject, I want to say that you mentioned earlier, just, regarding specifically the ADU programs and the WDU programs, how there's more of a, conservative approach to those lending habits. And I would certainly, I guess, hope that, if the market rate a year and a half ago or whatever was 3%, that whatever lenders that the county would be working with would not be, trying to lend somebody with a rate as egregious as 20%, which was, more commonplace back in like the 70s and 80s, for like my parents or whatever.
Absolutely. So we are certainly not seeing that with the people that they are approving. What we're not seeing, if anyone is going to them and not getting approved for whatever reason. Like I said, I know one lender in particular that works with our program has said flat out they will not make a loan to somebody that doesn't have legal status, and we don't have control over that. But the interest rates that we're seeing on people that they're making loans to is well within the maximum amount. So that piece is not happening, like I said, because we don't, and I think that might be a reason why the FCRHA wants to get into that role in some capacity.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hey, really quick, Carol, and I know, Denver, you're the timekeeper. We're definitely a little tight on time and all that, but just out of curiosity, I can't remember. I want to say it was like 51 homes left, maybe regarding the HELP abbreviated
Right.
program.
Right.
And we obviously know why that was implemented, but just out of curiosity, like how many transactions, like how many, homes roughly were, dealt
Sold
with, like,
back.
sold back like over that time? Was it like in thousands?
Oh, okay. Initially. So
The silver lining one, just for
Yes,
that was
yes. So I'd have to go back and look at the data on that.
I was just curious.
I have the current count because I can run a report from our system, so I know what's there currently. I'd have to go back and look at it. Like I said, that program predates me coming to the division, so I'm not sure. And that also predates our current technology system. So I'm not sure how many of the original purchases even made it into our technology system. So I'm not as confident that I would come up with an accurate number. I will say that Fairfax County did not have as many foreclosures as some of the other areas. So I don't think it was a massive number, but I'd have to try and do some research to see if I can figure out what the total number initially was on the program.
Okay. And Denver, feel free to chime in, but Carol, this was incredibly helpful. Really appreciate your time. And, I know Casey, you had coordinated, we had liaised and kind of, I was able to extend some information to Carol beforehand. We got some, so if we do have follow-up questions from everybody, feel free to send it to me, send it to Denver, and I can certainly get it over to Carol and her team. Tom and Ben and everybody that you work with, and you work with Regina too, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, and I can send you the slides. I'm sorry, I saw your email. I didn't ignore you.
Okay.
It's just been a crazy day. So I've been running from one fire to the next fire. So I just, but I can send you the slides too. I'm not trying to not send them to you.
No.
So that's fine.
No, yeah, no sweat. Like, tomorrow is perfectly fine.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
All right, folks, we are a minute after the top of the hour, so we're just going to cover some logistical things. Sarah has moved out of the county. Yay, she's now a homeowner. Boo, we lost her as our vice chair. So that is something we will be taking up at our next meeting. But speaking of the next meeting, we just wanted to do a quick survey to see if folks are available for our July 21st meeting time. I know I am out of town, but I don't know if there's immediate conflicts. And Jarrett, this might just be like a quick email as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and folks, like initially when we set the schedule, we specifically did not do an August meeting just due to the vacations and all that. And we always felt like the July 21st was a little iffy. So I will, as I did last month, I'll send out the calendar invite with the Teams link regardless, and then I'll probably send a follow-up just to kind of gauge everybody's availability.
So it looks like 3 of us will not be here. So, oh, never mind. Sorry, Kate, Emma, I read that wrong. But Casey and I won't be here, but we'll see. Eddie, did you have a comment?
Yes, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
know, so when was the next meeting will come?
Our next meeting would be the 21st. We would begin at 6 p.m. and end at 8 p.m. The first hour would be subcommittees, and the second hour would be full committee.
Which we'll also talk about that further as well, I think.
Yeah.
But and then Eddie, if the July meeting does not occur, if we do not have enough for a quorum, it would be September 22nd would be the first meeting, I guess, of the fall. Yeah. To close out with those final 4.
Yeah, and that's because the board nor do any of the commissions or authorities meet in August. That's their recess. All right, folks, any other comments, closing comments? Casey, do you want to do a follow-up with your committee with Carol? I don't know what that would look like for you all, but if you want to do something, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, we can, work with the committee at our next subcommittee meeting or do some sort of emailing to see kind of how we want to follow up and what next steps are. I think I'd be interested definitely in hearing the conversations once they start getting their, the other positions filled and seeing if we can support the county stepping in and filling that lender role. So I do think we want to make sure we keep tabs on that as a committee and subcommittee.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, any closing comments before we adjourn today? All right, y'all. We'll have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. I will not see you personally in July. So I guess I will see you all in September. But I wish you all a great next few months. And yeah, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, you know who to contact. All right, night, y'all. Oh, it's 8:05. We were officially adjourned. Okay, bye.
Everyone.
Bye, folks. Thank you.